I guess I am live. That's so weird. Welcome everybody to week 34 for my open Q&A, where I am here to answer your math questions, as well as go through a little bit of a daily schedule to kind of let you guys know a little bit maybe behind the scenes what a typical kind of week and day looks for me. I know many of you guys are just getting back into the swing of things, getting back to schooling. I know many of you are still have like a week or two left of a little bit of freedom, and then you are getting back into where some of us have been for the last couple weeks. So I just finished off my first week of school, and I just wanted to kind of let you guys know, a little bit how that went for me, and as well as kind of like what a typical day kind of looks for me. One kind of going off of last year, but then also kind of doing a little bit of now going back into this new school year. It's been pretty crazy, especially this first week. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and work through that. And then we have definitely some questions. One thing I did want to mention to you guys is let's talk about those questions. Okay, so I do have some user submitted questions. I think I have 9 of them that I'm going to cover. So we'll talk about some calculus. We'll talk about some advice, graphing quadratics. We'll do a literal equation, some order of operations. I think just finding the midpoint of that. We got some trig, and then we got some logarithm. So we got a lot of a good variety for tonight. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit as far as my schedule. What does everything kind of look like for me? Because that is something that is pretty, I would say, definitely something that has changed throughout the year. But school is hot garbage. Yes, Mark. Mark it is. And hey, Christine, Celium, Wombat, and Fall Vlogs. Daniel, Russell, thank you so much, guys. I'm seeing you guys on here. I really do appreciate it. And Mark, it was also good to see you down in the school. So yeah, that's it's kind of difficult. Like when right now we're going back to school, we're going part-time. So I'm seeing half of the students in the classroom, and then the other class I teach online. So a couple other things that I do, this is something actually I started last year because I was just getting overwhelmed with how much work that I needed to do. So I realized the best time to go ahead and get that work done was in the early morning. And it used to be something back in the day. I literally used to wake up like the last possible time I could wake up. I would just wake up, brush my teeth, wash my face, and like get changed and get out the door. And I would get into school like just in time, and then I'd just go and teach. Whatever planning I would have to do, I would just stay after school. Well, I realized that was not really the best method that I wanted to continue for teaching. So, because always that first period, it always would take like, 20, 30 minutes for me to really kind of warm up to really kind of get that, enthusiasm going. So in starting of last year, I just started waking up in the early morning. So I start my day at 4:30 in the morning, and just kind of, that is my early morning for the first 30 minutes. I just kind of wake up, stretch, just kind of get myself a little bit mentally prepared for the day. And then really from 5 until 6, it's anything from doing working on my YouTube channel, doing stuff for my coursework, doing anything for planning that I need to do. So really from 5 to 6, it's kind of like a power hour where I'm just able to get things done. Typically everybody in my household is sleeping, so that's usually pretty good. And then really from like 6 to 6:30, it's kind of my time, or really from 6 to 6:15, I'm sorry, is my time to really get ready. Because at 6:15, I wake up our girls, and I try to help my wife before getting them ready to go to school. And then I'm basically out the door at 6:30 because my school starts at 7:15. So I need to be at the school at 7:05. And one thing that's kind of different this year is we're going back to 7 class periods a day. And with the kind of scheduling conflict, it's been difficult to get all the classes going. So I bought back my planning period. So I don't have a planning period this year. I basically teach all throughout the day. I get a 30-minute lunch, and that is usually my day. That is usually my 30 minutes to decompress throughout the day and just kind of maybe get done anything that I need to get done as far as like the office or anything else. And then, yeah, after that, our school is, we finish at 2:00, and then at 2:25, I've made it a point. I used to stay after school all the time, like all the time. I'd always stay after school forever because I'd always just be tutoring, helping students out. But I was kind of feeling a little burned out. So, starting of last year, and especially this year, I've made a goal to leave at 2:45 every single day. And last year I started that, and I didn't hold true to it all the time. But this year so far, at least a week, I've been able to leave at 2:40. And so basically, once school is over with, I'm either taking care of stuff. I'm recording videos now because I'm not making any of my classroom videos that I've made before because I am wearing a mask. And I don't think really classroom videos of me with a mask are going to be like that great. So what I decided to do is I'm doing all my recordings after school. So you'll kind of notice, you guys can make fun of me or not if you want to, but some people that always ask on my channel, like, hey, is he actually teaching inside the classroom? Which the answer is yes. But this year, no, I'm actually just teaching to myself. So I'm going over the same typical problems that I want, but I'm not going to upload all of those problems. So that will just be the secret between us, okay? But you guys will see these classroom videos. I'm going to start uploading them actually tomorrow. And that will be it would be a recreation of what I did inside the classroom. And so therefore, I'd kind of do some recording of the videos after school and, do whatever else, copies, whatever else I need for that week. And then out the door, I go ahead and head home, get my gym stuff, and, go to the gym to work out until 4:30. So basically I get home, do gym from, about 3, do a little stretch, 3:30 to 4:30, going to the gym. And then after that, go back home, change, and go and pick up my girls from school, and then come home. Then it's kind of dinner and family time, basically from 5 to 7. And then after kind of 7, I try to do a little bit of like work that I need to do. This is kind of like our decompression. 5 to 7 is like dinner and just, hanging out as a family. And then from 7 to 8 is kind of like our calming down time. So a lot of times that's when I'll kind of get out my computer and do some work that I need to do. And then basically 7:30 to like 8:30 is like we're trying to get our girls to go to bed, reading books and everything like that. And then I really only get to decompress, with my wife, except for dinner, as after like 8:30, 9 o'clock, we'll usually either watch a show or just sit and relax, or sometimes I might have a lot of work and I'll just continue doing work from and then there. So that is basically my day. The only day that really changes a little bit is Wednesday. I don't work out. I just go ahead and do stretching to help myself keep flexible. But besides that, it's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's besides running the YouTube channel and doing all my coursework, I'm teaching 4 different classes this year, Algebra 2, Geometry, or Algebra 2 Honors, Geometry Honors, and Pre-Calculus. So that's keeping me pretty busy preparing for all those classes, all the tests and all the quizzes. I don't even want to think about that right now. But, and then also doing all the stuff that I have for YouTube. I also am teaching the online course. If those of you are on my channel in August, you recognize that I opened up a online version of my course. And so I'm running that as well. I'm doing some extra live streams for that. And then also doing my YouTube memberships. So I just wanted to thank also the YouTube members because you guys have allowed me to create some extra videos with the YouTube membership kind of program. So that is another way to obviously support my channel, and you guys kind of get some free little perks from inside there. So, but yeah, taking up some time with the YouTube memberships, obviously teaching the course online. So it's kind of like actually even an extra period. It's like 8 periods, really. Not really, because I don't teach them every day, but I'm at least checking in with them in a week in my online course. And then also something I just want to let you guys know is, also looking into the looking into some possibilities of that course as well. Getting some things for those of you guys that are just joining into pre-calculus or just starting school here in the next couple weeks. I'm looking into doing some new things in the online space. So I will keep going on my channel. If you are taking pre-calculus and you are looking for some extra assistance addition to my channel, then I'll most likely have some additional information for you guys. All right. And the last thing I just want to let you guys know, I had the most submissions I've ever had on my Google form this week. I was very excited to see it. But then I quickly got a little sad on how many submissions I had to just delete because one, I had no idea what they were asking. It was, I asked for to specifics and it was just, I had no idea what the question was or what I was even supposed to talk about. And then also too, a lot of them I had to like read, and it's not that I can't read, but for these live streams, I want to make sure I can get through as many problems as possible. And obviously I could do like 3-word problems and take up the whole live stream. But that's not really gonna, that's not really going to serve many of you. So I want to make sure I can hit as many problems as possible. So if you guys can be very specific on what it is you need me, if it is a word problem and, try to be specific on what it is you want me to address. But yeah, I'm trying to avoid problems that take a long time for me to kind of prepare for or for me to solve, because the open Q&A is really to, kind of address things on a small basis, like on a quick basis, like let's cover this problem, let's cover that problem, and then let's go ahead and move on. So, all right, guys, that is basically it for my little introduction. Math and science. Armin, BMVS, how many push-ups do you do? I can't do that many push-ups. The only reason why I work out so much is because I need to keep up my flexibility, because if I don't really do it for strength. Every single time I try to push myself in doing like reps or in weight, I always end up injuring myself. So I really just do the workout just to remain flexible, because my body is just kind of like seizes up like an engine if I'm not continuously like doing work. So obviously playing sports my whole life, and obviously having multiple injuries through over the years, I think just the wear and tear on my body is, if I'm not keeping it flexible and constantly doing something, I just see myself, of the last couple of years where I wasn't active, I was injuring myself a lot more. I wasn't as flexible. So that's why that's why last year it became like my priority number one. I'm like, I have to remain active. Because otherwise I think, it's just, I'm just going to keep on like injure myself and also it keeps up my energy. I have so many things, especially during the day. I'm go. Literally 30 minutes is like to 30 minutes is really just to like decompress, and then it's teach. So really this gym time is, kind of my way to step, just to kind of my own personal time, because after that, then I got my kids and family, and then you got to be present for that. And that's another roller coaster of, dealing with talking and people and everything else. So it's just like, it's a lot. So yeah, usually by the nighttime, I used to do a lot of my schoolwork at the nighttime, but now I'm just like too exhausted to do that. So that's why I've been waking up early. All right. What time count do you learn in Algebra 3? I don't know. I've never taken Algebra 3. I'm not sure what course you have for that. Can you remind me about how to do quadratic functions? Well, Lauren, I'm not sure. And like quadratic functions is like a whole chapter. So I'm not sure what you want me to teach for the quadratic functions. I am going to do a problem on quadratic functions. We're going to do a graphing problem, I believe. But again, the same thing, it's very, it's very difficult. A lot of people just like gave me an equation and it's like solve. And I'm like, well, I don't know what am I solving for? Or what is this problem, going through? And hey, Addie, how are you? Good to see you back in on there. Good to see you in there. And then M says, bro, I'd like to thank you for helping me get through online school because I had a mental breakdown, so we're not getting my math. Yeah, I totally get it with the mental breakdowns. And then also so many people are going online now. It's crazy. Like it's the idea of like so many students trying to learn online, I think it's crazy just because I know it's not going to work. And what I mean by that is it's getting us by, but it's not a solution. This is not like the new wave of the way that all learning is going to happen. I think we're going to see a lot more online learning in the next couple of years because I think it's going to be a big push. They're going to see the efficiency and the cost of this going down. But I know from teaching online and being from a student and trying to learn online, that it does not replicate being inside of the classroom. I mean, yes, there's great courses that I'm so happy that I can just watch something online, and if I don't need to pay attention to it, I can just like do something else, listen to it, and get my work done. But like for a math class, this is no way I could take a math course online. Even in college, I would have to be inside the classroom listening to the professor, and so therefore I could ask questions, doing my homework with other students, and just following something online would not be sufficient for me. And Clashinator says, what's my worst subject? It was definitely English. I still, even like writing papers or emails, I mean, it is just, sometimes it takes me forever, like 3 or 4 versions to write something for it to even sound like not as bad. But yes, I am, I can write. It just takes me a really, really long time. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the math. Thank you so much, guys, for all of you joining in. And again, if you guys do have some questions, I'm not going to stop inside here, but what I'll do is I'm just going to kind of hit the math for the next 15, 20 minutes. And then if you guys do have any questions, make sure that you go ahead and add them in there. Again, I have 9 questions that I'm going to be covering here. And then after those 9 questions, we'll see, maybe we can answer one more to add into the 10. Okay. All right. Actually, I need to change. Let's put this to red. I'll go from there. Well, that's very good, Star X and Nikki. I'm happy I could help out. All right. So I don't really like doing all of these because I'm not really sure what the student needed. But Celium or Lily, I saw you on here earlier. Hope you're still here. But you did have a question as far as talking about continuity and behavior and limits. Again, this is something I talked about, for a whole chapter, so I'm not sure if I can do you justice for your quiz tomorrow. But let's just kind of talk about them in order. First of all, continuity. Basically, continuity, is the graph continuous in the meaning that there's no breaks, holes, or asymptotes that break up the graph. And you can see that this one has a discontinuity, which we call a jump discontinuity, right? As you're kind of tracing this graph, you have to jump from here to continue graphing the line. So it is continuous on intervals, right? From -infinity to 2, it's continuous. And on the interval 2 to infinity, it's continuous. But as the graph as a whole, it's not a continuous function, right? So as long as there's no breaks or holes in the graph, then it is continuous. And again, there's 3 different types of discontinuities. There is a jump, which we have here. You could have just a random hole, right? That would be another discontinuity. Or you could have like an asymptote. But you need to have an asymptote that would break it up, right? Please note, if it doesn't break it up, then it's not considered a discontinuity. Okay, so you'd have to have an asymptote, somewhere inside the graph where it's approaching the asymptote to break it up. Maybe we had something like that. All right. But I actually don't want to put that red because I don't want to confuse you. And then the end behavior is basically asking ourselves, as we keep on like expanding out, where is the graph going? And we want to explain end behavior as the graph is going to the left and to the right. So we could say, as the graph is going to the left, the graph is going down. As the graph is going to the right, you can see the graph is going up. Now that we're talking about limits, we're going to be a little bit more mathematical, but I think you can agree that as it goes right, the graph is going up. As we're going left, the graph is going down. That's the basic idea of it. Now let's go and talk about limits. So when we're talking about limits, what we're looking for is the main thing to understand limits is we're looking for we want to use the word approach. So this arrow represents approach. So as x approaches 2 from the left, so we're going to have 2, and this is called our left-hand limit. So as we're getting closer to 2 from the left-hand side, okay, what y value are we approaching? And I guess I should probably do something like that. So what y value is the function f of x? What is it approaching? Well, you can see it's getting really, really close to the y value of 2. Okay, as x is approaching 2 from the right, so that means from up here, as we're getting closer and closer to 2 from the right, what y value are we approaching? It looks like we're approaching the y value of 1. So these are what we call the left and right hand limit. So when you have this little negative up here, that means from the left. Here it's going to be from the right. And again, you're looking for what is the y value that the graph is approaching, not what it's equal to. Because again, if I say what is f of 2, that is the value that the function is defined for, which is equal to 1. Okay, but the general limit is going to be what is the value that the graph is approaching from the left and from the right. And since from the left it's approaching 2, from the right it's approaching 1, this limit does not exist. And then last but not least is we can use this, what about as x approaches infinity? Well, x approaches infinity is just a mathematical way of saying as x keeps on getting larger and larger, right? Or as x keeps on going to the right. Where is this graph going? Well, it keeps on going up and up. So therefore we could say, be a little more specific, we could say it's approaching infinity. And as x is going to negative infinity, that means getting smaller and smaller. Or going to the left, we could say, well, this graph is going down, which means it's approaching negative infinity. Okay, so hopefully that helps out. I will look for out you in the chat because I do know you have a quiz. So if there's something else that I explained that maybe didn't make sense, or you wanted me to elaborate on something else, let me know. And then the next one came in just like some advice. And it's been a couple years since I taught calculus. So I was just trying to think of, what are some generic stuff that, if you're taking 20 years away from calculus, what are some things that you should probably go back and review? And I would think just looking at the AP curriculum, I don't recall, it's been way too long since I was because I think whoever this student was going into college, going back to the college. So I don't recall the calculus curriculum in college and how that differentiates from the AP curriculum in high school. But I would say definitely some things that I've seen students that, really trick them up is mostly the algebra. So, factoring, simplifying rational expressions. And this would also go into just understanding, fractions and rules of logarithms, rules of exponents. I think like those basic things that obviously if you're not, it's 20 years, you're not going around and probably factoring a lot of problems or using the rules of exponents, rules of logarithms, maybe fractions here or there, depending on what you've been doing. But you probably haven't been doing a lot of simplifying rational expressions, So going back through those, and I'd say the other one too is graphing with transformations. I think in calculus, it's very important to know like the transformations and how that's impacting all these different functions and graphs that we have. And then also we want to make sure you are prepared for the trig. So you're going to want to make sure you know the unit circle, evaluate trigonometric expressions, remember the trigonometric identities. Those are some things that I think will definitely give you a good foundation as you get into the calculus because, going right into calculus, they're going to expect that you can use the unit circle. Remember the trig identities. Evaluate trig functions. So those are just some ideas. I'm sure, probably some people can also add into this of what they wish they kind of knew or remembered before taking into calculus. And if you do have some advice, pop it into the chat. I don't think the student gave me the name. So let me know what you think from there. Or what else that you think that would be helpful for them. All right, let's get into the next one is I'm assuming, and here's like the thing, like the student posted graph. I'm assuming that's what the student wanted. I have no idea. They just said, do this problem. So I'm going to go ahead and graph it. And so if I needed to graph this, we can't really use our transformations. We can't put this into, actually we could put this in our vertex form. But I want to give you guys a method that one thing that we don't, Sam, you can go ahead and just add your chat. I'll be able to see it, or add your question into the chat. So, yeah, Olivia, go Mustangs. All right. So on this example, if we needed to go ahead and graph y equals 3x squared minus 6x, we could go ahead and rewrite this into vertex form, and then go ahead and find the transformations. Another thing that we could also look at is just kind of look into the factoring form of finding the x and the y intercepts. So if I wanted to find the x-intercepts here, remember the x-intercepts is when y is equal to 0. So I'll set 0, and I'll say 3x squared minus 6x. And what's nice about this is you can factor out a 3x. And by factoring out 3x, you're going to get an x minus 2. There you go. Okay? So therefore, 3x equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. Therefore, x equals 0, and x equals 2. So this is important because if I wanted to graph this, now the student didn't say how well to graph this, right? Because you should use a table. You could also use a table of values here, but I know x equals 0 and x equals 2. But the student, actually, I don't even know what the student wanted. But it would be nice if you had to put in the vertex, so therefore you could find the vertex form of the actual graph, or you could find the vertex. And then another way is you could just find the y-intercept, and remember the y-intercept is when x equals 0. So you plug 0 in for x, and that y equals 0, okay? So the other thing is, so I have the two x-intercepts, and as long as you have the two x-intercepts, you just need to show, does the graph open up or down? Well, since my a is positive, I know this graph is going to open up. So again, this method is not very helpful if we needed to identify what the vertex was. But if we just need to sketch a graph of the quadratic, then you can just go ahead and find the x and the y intercepts and then go from there. And a lot of times, like in calculus, this is just sufficient to what you need to do. You don't need to complete the square and, and go from there. You just need to kind of get a general idea of what the graph is going to be looking like. All right, the next question says the volume of cone is given by the equation v equals 1/3 pi r squared h. Which of the following represents r in terms of v and h? So that is just another way of saying we need to solve for r. So let's see, we got v equals 1/3 pi r squared h. Okay, so when we need to solve for r, a couple things we need to do. We need to understand what is happening to the r, and then we just need to undo that. So we have our r. You can see it's being squared, being multiplied by itself. It's being multiplied by pi, multiplied by h, and multiplied by 1/3. So if we want to undo multiplication, we're going to do division. So we need to undo we need to undo multiplication before we undo the squaring. That is following the reverse order of operations. So I'm going to divide by all these. So I'm going to divide by 1/3 pi and h. Now hopefully you recognize that dividing by 1/3 is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, so if I divide by 1/3, that's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, and therefore I'll just rewrite this as a 3v divided by pi h is equal to r squared. Now I just need to solve for r, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And since I talked about the volume, and I know r represents the radius of a cone, I know the radius is not going to be negative, so I'm not going to use the positive negative version. I'm just going to use the positive version. And therefore we could say r equals square root of 3v divided by pi h. Okay. All right, Sam, I'll get to your question. I know you need to follow the fundamental theorem of algebra, which I forgot how to do that question. Determine the term between which consecutive integers zeros are located on the interval. I can't remember. I even did this in our chapter. I'll go back and look at that problem at the end. All right, so the next one is going to be, I got it. Okay, never mind. I gotcha. I followed this up to remember. Determine which consecutive integers. Consecutive integers. I'll have to think about it. All right, either way. So we'll come back to that. That'll be question number 10. So so in this one, we're going to follow the order of operations, the good old PEMDAS. You might have seen these on like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Like people love just posting these order of operations questions, right? So, PEMDAS, GEMDAS, however you remembered it, parentheses, exponents, and then you have multiplication, division, and then you have addition and subtraction. Now, the reason why I'm putting these in parentheses is because it doesn't matter the order. It could be multiplication, division. It could be division times multiplication. It could be addition times subtraction, or it could be subtraction, addition. We keep it in this order because it makes us, this nice little acronym PEMDAS, like it works. But the main important thing is we want to make sure that we do parentheses first. So look at any parentheses, no. Okay. The next thing is look for any exponents. No exponents, no. So now we're going to look for either multiplication or division and work our way from left to right. So I'm going to go from left, and no, I see some division. So therefore, I'm going to do the division first. So I have 6 divided by 2 is going to be a positive 3. Then times 7, right? So now I'm going to do the multiplication. So I do 4 minus 5. 3 times 7 is going to be a positive 21. And now I'm going to do addition and subtraction, but again, I'm going to work from left to right. So I'm going to do 4 minus 5 is negative 1 plus 21. Negative 1 plus 21 is going to be 20. All right. In this case, you can see we have, I don't know why I'm going to erase that. In this one, we look for parentheses. And I say, okay, I see my parentheses. And again, just work from left to right. So I have 9 plus 6 minus 6 is 0 times 4 minus, we can do this parenthesis from left to right, negative 7 minus a negative 2. That's going to be a positive, so that would be a negative 5. Okay, now we're done with the parentheses. Like we don't really need this minus the negative, so I guess I'll just leave it there. But there's nothing we can do inside the parentheses. Then we'll just go, there's no exponents. So now I'll go from multiplication division from left to right. In this case, I have 0 times 4, which is just 0. And then, so therefore, that's going to be 0. And then really 0 minus a negative 5 is really just plus 5. Okay. And then you can see my final answer is 14. All right. So the next one, we actually did this in my geometry class. So, and there's something I wanted to, talk about. You could use obviously the formula, but I wanted to kind of explain, like when we were trying to find the midpoint in a coordinate grid. Remember, this midpoint here is basically the midpoint between my point P and Q. And so it's just going to be the horizontal midpoint and the vertical midpoint. And this is very important to understand because, if I had like a number line, and let's forget about a coordinate grid for a second. If I had a number line like -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and I said, what's the midpoint? Now, most students would say it's going to be here, right? Because there is 2, and from there's 2, right? But what if I wanted to say, what if I didn't know what these numbers were? What if I was using variables? How would you find that midpoint? Well, what you could do is you could take the one endpoint plus the other endpoint and then divide it by 2, right? Because the midpoint is right in the middle. And when you see what happens when you do that, you get 2 divided by 2, which equals 1. Okay, so that's basically what we are doing. You could easily count, determine the equations of the medians for each vertex, or each vertex of angle PQR. I guess I didn't even read the question. Determine the medians. Oh, I guess. Wait a minute. Never mind. I don't even understand what the question. Never mind. That student was asking for something. Determine the medians. Is that it? I am going to have to cancel on that question just because I have not taught geometry in over 10 years, and this is not something that we have gotten to. So I do not remember how to find the, I believe I'm assuming you're looking for like those are the median points. And then you're looking for I'm assuming like the centroid or whatever else. I do not recall. So I apologize. I should probably not even have written that answer. I thought I recognized it for some reason, but I guess I did not. And I apologize. I will eventually get to that question, but I'm not going to be able to get to it tonight. So I usually try to avoid questions. That's something I haven't covered in a while. And I just don't even recall. It's been over 10 years since I taught geometry. So I apologize for that. I know you submitted it 4 times. You'd only need to submit it once. I do get it. But unfortunately, it's not something I should have written down. So apologies for that. Did I write Jared? No, sorry. All right, so the next one is, the next one says, go ahead and we wanted to write tangent in terms of cosine. So if you think about how can you write tangent? Well, tangents, like sine over cosine, right? Or tangent is 1 over cotangent. Cosine's 1 over secant. How can you relate to these two? And the way that we can do that is basically using your Pythagorean identities. So if you recall the Pythagorean theorem identity, we want to write tangent in terms of cosine, only cosine. So because if you just did the tangent cosine sine, that'd be in terms of cosine and sine. And we want to treat this in quadrant 3. So if I wanted to do that, there's 2 identities we need to know. This first identity and this identity. So in this identity, we have tangent squared of theta plus 1 equals secant squared. All right, good. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and subtract the 1. So now I have tangent squared of theta equals secant squared of theta minus 1. Now, now what we see is, well, I know secant, right? We don't want to write it in terms of secant. We want to write it in terms of cosine. So please note that secant is 1 over cosine, right? So if secant squared then is just going to be 1 over cosine squared of theta. So what I'll do is I'll say tangent squared of theta is equal to 1 over cosine squared of theta minus 1. Now you can see I have tangent in terms of cosine, but I haven't really fully solved tangent. I got to undo the squaring. So we're going to introduce the square root. Now again, remember when you introduce the square root, you have to include plus or minus. So therefore I have tangent of theta equals plus or minus the square root of 1 over cosine squared of theta minus 1. Now, which should it be? Should it be the positive or should it be the negative? Well, in quadrant 3, we can see that the tangent and cosine for like this angle here is going to be negative. So therefore, we're going to use the negative version for my angle there. And we have Noma Chat here was asking for question number 8 as far as I think he wanted to find the inverse. So remember, just for logarithms, when you want to find the inverse, you can replace the f of x with y, and then you swap the x and the y. So let's just rewrite this with y. Actually, I already wrote it with y, and then we swap the x and the y. So that is the relationship between the x for the input and the output of a function and its inverse. So x equals 2 to the negative y. Okay, so now we need to solve for y. Now there's a problem here because we have the y in as a power. So hopefully you recall from earlier, to get this negative y off the denominator, we're going to go ahead and take the log of both sides. And so therefore we have the log of x equals log of log base 10 of 2, log base 2 of both sides, raised to the negative y. That is using our rules of logarithms. It's just going to equal negative y, divide by 1, divide by negative 1, and now you could say y equals a negative log base 2 of x. Should write that in there. And therefore, plugging this back into my inverse notation, that's going to be a negative log base 2 of x. And actually, you can go ahead and check this by also go ahead and graphing the exponential and logarithmic function. Remember, the relationship between those two graphs is going to be reflected about the y equals x line. And then the last question was asking for the graph to graph the logarithm. Now, I'm not sure if the student needs a exact graph because I'll just give them a rough estimate. Because again, like I think the rough estimate is going to be majority of the time exactly what you need. If you need something exact, then you'll need a calculator or you'll want a calculator. So let's go ahead and get into this. If I need to graph this, we need to know the parent graph. So what does y equals log of x? That would be base 10, right? What does log of x look like? Well, that's going to have a y-intercept of 1, 0. It's going to look like this with a vertical asymptote at 0. So now let's go ahead and go through all these transformations. So we have, when we're multiplying by negative on the outside of the function, that is going to be a reflection of the x-axis. When we're multiplying by a number larger than 1 outside the function, that's going to be a vertical stretch of 3, of a factor of 3. When we are adding a 2 inside the function, that's going to be left, shifting the graph left 2 units. And when we're adding a 1 outside the function, that's going to shift the graph up 1. Okay, so we have this 1 point here, right? We know that 1 point is at 1, 0. So what we can do is say, all right, if I reflect this graph, right, across the x-axis, that point's not going to change, right? Because you're reflecting it basically about that point. If you stretch the graph, again, that's not going to move the point at all either, because all that's going to do is vertically stretch the graph. So now we have a graph that's being reflected about the x-axis and vertically stretched. Now let's go ahead and figure out where is this graph moving to? Well, it's moving 2 to the left. So it's going to go from here, it's going to go 2 to the left. The asymptote needs to go 2 to the left as well. And then the graph is going to go up 1. Let's just put up 1 right here. So this graph is going to look something like that. Okay, we know it got reflected. There was my original point, right? Here's this 1, 0, got shifted 2 points to the left and then up 1. All right, and so the graph would look something like that. All right, sweet. Well, just enough time here. Almost at my end. Let me go back to Celium's question. Well, thank you so much, guys, for staying in with me. And remember, guys, I will be back for another live stream next week. I'm not done yet. I'm going to still do one more question. But I just want to remind you guys, if I did not get your question or if you did put in a question, I see Sword Matrix is asking me for I have a word problem. I do not like to handle word problems on the on these open Q&As. They take too long for me to set them up. They take too long for me to solve them, and they take too long for me to read them. So I prefer and avoid word problems. I think I had to delete like 3 or 4 word problems that were submitted to me for this week because I'm like, like these live streams would take like 4 hours if we were just doing word problems. And I recognize that that's what a lot of students need help on because yeah, they are difficult. But it takes too long to kind of cover them for these streams. But then Crypto says, you helped me pass the honors geometry. I was failing badly. I needed a lot of help to increase. Let's double to your channel and it helped me so much. Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, you are very welcome. Question. I gotcha. Awesome. But yes, you can also though, guys, go ahead and please submit your questions for next week. And from there, Christine, I'm assuming you want it. I see, Christine, that you posted something in there, but I'm not sure if you mean to solve because there's no equation from there. But you can multiply that is definitely something you can do. Just follow FOIL for that regards. But yeah, I'll definitely in the description, I believe I have a description is correct. But even in the description of this live stream, you guys can go ahead and enter into the Google form. And then also, if you don't have your questions answered, you can go to the Discord and go ahead and add in your question there. And people just like you are helping each other out in the Discord channel. So I definitely recommend going out to there as well if you're looking for something a little bit quicker. All right. One more. How do you solve the term whether at x equals 1/2? It says use the continuity test. I do not recall, Salem. It's, to be honest with you, as far as the calculus, but there is a couple things that I can help you with, I think. 2x plus 1. I'm assuming that's what you had. Whoa. Well, heck yeah, Yash. I'm happy to be able to help you out. Look at that. That's awesome. And a base of 50, and I need to find the true bearing angle from theta. Yeah, that's a lot. What if I have a triangle with a height 10 and a base of 50, and I need to find the true bearing angle? I'm not sure if I'm not understanding that question fully. Okay. So it's also been a while, Salem, as far as me doing this fundamental theorem question. So x cubed plus 2x plus 5 is located on the interval. I'm not sure. It says determine between which consecutive zeros are located. I'm not sure if you'd need to use some calculus. I'm just going to kind of talk about one point that I kind of remember, at least with the fundamental theorem of algebra. I'll just talk from there, and then and I apologize, I might not be able to address your question exactly from there. So first of all, let's go and talk about this graph. Is this graph continuous at 1/2 or not? Well, the best thing to do is plug it in at 1/2, right? So we have 1/2 times 1/2 plus 1, and that's going to give us 1 plus 1, which is equal to 2. So the graph is defined, but again, it could still be defined to be a hole or a jump asymptote. But I think you'd need to understand like where do jumps and where do holes come from? And typically they're going to, a hole is a removable discontinuity. So it's either going to show up from simplifying a rational expression, something that gets divided out, or from a piecewise function. And a jump is going to come from a piecewise function as well. So if you're looking at what this discontinuity is, this actually has a vertical asymptote at 0. Why? Because 0 is going to be undefined. And so therefore, that's where there's a vertical asymptote. So at 1/2, this graph is actually defined and continuous. But in general, this graph is discontinuous with an asymptote at 0. But from either sides of that asymptote, it would be a continuous function. Yes, you can submit it onto the Google form. But again, I am not taking questions on the Google form until next week. So I do have geometry, pre-calculus, calculus, algebra 2, all those different channels available on my Discord that I would recommend if you're looking for some more immediate kind of help to go ahead and check there, or to go ahead and post your question in there. Can you go through the entire algebra 2 syllabus? I wish so, James, but that would be really, really long, right? Well, yes, Charles, I'm glad I got to your question. All right, so the basic thing is the fundamental theorem. No, crap, it's not the fundamental theorem. What is the theorem? No, I'm drawing a blank. But either way, let's just kind of go through. If you have a function, and we know this function is continuous on an interval, and let's just say this is from -2 to +2. Okay. Now let's just say we have a value like -2. Oh, actually, let's go through a point. Let's figure out what f of 2 is. F of -2. Okay. So that's going to be what? A -8 minus 4 plus 5. That's a -12. That's -7, right? So that's -7. Okay. And then let's figure out what f of 2 is. F of 2 is going to be +8 plus 4 plus 5. So that's going to be 12. That's going to be 17. Right? So 17. Okay. So I'm not sure exactly what your question was asking, but again, like you can see, this is something very important because please somebody type in the chat because it's really bothered me. I can't think of the theorem on the tip and of what it means. But basically what the theorem is stating that if you have a value that is negative and positive, and this function we know is continuous, right? This is a continuous function. There's no discontinuities. There's no values that would be undefined for our domain. Then what this theorem that I cannot think of is saying that you have to cross the x-axis somewhere between -2 and 2. We don't know where you're going to cross the x-axis. We just know you have to cross the x-axis, right? Because my graph has to go from here to here, right? They're both defined, and it's actually defined for every value between -2 and 2. So somewhere it's going to cross the x-axis. Did anybody get it yet? Nobody got it. Okay. So somewhere we're going to cross the x-axis. And that's what that theorem is showing you. Obviously, if both the values were like negative, then you couldn't prove that there was actually a 0 on that interval. But if you have a continuous function, has to be a continuous function, and you have different points on that interval that whereas one's positive, one negative, the theorem that I cannot think of is stating that you have to have a 0 in between those two values. So hopefully that makes a little sense to you. Yeah, the centroid. Yes. Thank you so much. I do not recall. So to whoever asked how to find the centroid, I totally forget. The x-coordinate equals the sum of the x-coordinates of the vertices divided by 3. Likewise for the y-coordinate. Thank you so much, John. I remember doing those problems and I didn't even think about it. The reason why I immediately went to the midpoint because we're just starting in my class. So we were teaching midpoint. So I just finished the midpoint and distance formula going on from there. And so that's where my mind moved in. And then I saw oh crap, the centroid. I'm like, yeah, that's been a long time since I did that. So thank you so much for posting that, John. I really do appreciate it. And sword metrics. And if you look in the description, it says, do you have questions? It has somebody raising their hand. There's the Google form down there. And then there's also the fundamental theorem of algebra. No, wait. But is it the fundamental theorem of algebra? I guess it does. That's what I was originally saying. No, the intermediate value theorem. That's it. Intermediate value theorem. That's it. Yeah, not the fundamental theorem of algebra. Fundamental theorem of algebra is saying that the sum of all the power of your polynomial is you're always going to have that many number of zeros of real or imaginary. Yes, the intermediate value theorem, IVT. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Connor. You made me remember. Yes. But the fundamental theorem of algebra we'll be getting to as well. And then I cover this actually in pre-calculus, but I don't cover it until next chapter. So it wasn't on top of my head for that. And yes, if you just go ahead and look in the description, you can see to the Discord, you guys can access that as well. Are you making new vids? Yes, I am. I am making one thing I mentioned, since I have such a tight schedule this year, I'm so used to always, like when I'm teaching, to record. But it's kind of different now because my students can't even see my board because they have like little divisors up. So I'm kind of teaching on using a tablet, and they can kind of see the work on the board. And then what I'm doing is I'm just selecting some problems to teach. And then after school, I take off my mask and I teach kind of like you would be familiar of me teaching. But yeah, I'm teaching with nobody in the classroom. So it is kind of awkward. And I can only do like three questions a day maximum. I've actually only recorded twice last week. And that's just to kind of cover some of the problems. But yeah, it kind of gets boring talking to nobody inside your classroom. But that's the only way I can make videos. And, I want to make sure I can kind of continue doing that because I like going through different types of problems, stuff like that. Oh, good, Sam. All right, awesome. Do you have any videos on the concept? Yes, I do. I have a ton of videos. I mean, obviously, you can just type in my channel, IVT. But if you go to my playlist section on my channel, I have a ton of videos on limits. I think I have like 160 videos on limits, and that's not even all of them. That's just the ones that I have right in there in the playlist. So, but yeah, I have a lot of stuff for you on there. Do you think there will be tests and quizzes during online school? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It is kind of interesting. Right now, as long as we're in person, I'm giving my students a test and quiz. I think when we go online, I'll still give them, they'll still have tests, but I decided to kind of put away with quizzes. It's just, I'm still giving them quizzes. I'm just not putting as much pressure on the grade for the quiz, just to kind of like reduce the amount of testing that the students have and how that impacts their grade. So that is basically what where my mind is kind of thinking of as far as like assessing students, because it's just tough. I mean, there's no great situation from students. I think that students need to be held accountable and they need to be pushed and everything, for the grade and to understand the material and to get their work done and, do what they need to do. But on the same respect, there's a lot going on that's outside of the students' control. And, to expect that the students this year are going to learn as well as my students in the past when they are doing all this stuff online, it's just like, I don't think that's a fair judgment either, so that's why for my first quiz this week, I decided I'm just going to be like, we're going to do this as a participation basic grade for the quiz. And then I'm not doing that for their test, but that's going to be for their first two quizzes, just because I want to see where you guys, where everybody was at and kind of treat it as a learning experience anyways. And then kind of see how this year is going to unfold. I don't know if we're going to continue with the hybrid, if we're going to go back online or go in person. So we're just going to kind of play it by ear. You're very welcome, Sam. I'm happy I could help you out. And then, sir, can I ask again? I'm not sure. Christine, go ahead and ask again. Do you know Nancy Pye in person? I do not know Nancy Pye in person, but she has had a YouTube channel for a while, and I'm definitely a fan of her, definitely her work. I think she does a great job explaining a lot of her math content and stuff like that. But yeah, I know I've never met her. John Nolan, yes, that is the factor theorem, I believe, John, that you are referring to up there. That is very helpful. I got a 62 on calc AB test limit, so I'm so sad. That's okay. You can still do very, very well in calculus. If you did poorly on the limit test, that does not really mean as much as far as what you're capable of for limits. But I would definitely say that you have some weak algebra skills. And so therefore the good news is you're aware of that. And also, like, the first quiz and tests of the year are always the hardest because you're learning about your teacher. You're learning about the, how things are. And again, like I just talked about, I'm not sure how much online learning you're going through, but you have to adjust. And there's nothing wrong with getting a 62 and a 52, a 42. Like, just adjust and keep on moving forward. And, I've had tons of students that have failed that first quiz of the year because they either maybe take me lightly or they take the course lightly. They don't put in the effort that they need to. And then they get this quiz and they're like, what the heck just happened? Like, I thought I was understanding everything. And it's like, no, this is a tough course. You have to do the homework. You have to study. You just can't show up and, do things. And I'm not saying you didn't, study or you didn't show up. But obviously there's some things you missed, right? Rightfully so. And so you just got to kind of reflect and say, why did I get those things wrong? What can I do better? And then just move on. But the good news about your grade, and what I tell my students in pre-calculus as well, is, just because you failed the first quiz, the first test, that doesn't mean you cannot be successful in this course. You just have to keep on practicing and doing the work. I think geometry. I think algebra is definitely easier than geometry, but I enjoyed geometry more than algebra. Put it that way. How do you not panic during quizzes? Well, I'm not sure, William. It's I think the more prepared you are, the less you're going to panic. All right, Christine, can I see how to solve for this? Well, I'll cover this for you because I know you asked this again. But be careful. I'm not sure what you mean by solving because there's no equation. But, if you're just going to do this, there's nothing that is a like term here. So I'm not sure what you're asking for. But all you're simply going to do is just multiply this times this, that times that. But none of these are like terms. So, you can't really simplify anything with here. But, it's just multiplying everything times everything. And that's about as far as I can go for you. Can you please make noise that you make before you would turn the camera on? Like, hello. Yes, that is the way that I do my sound check in my class. Because I've made, you guys can see like how many videos I've made of over 11,000 videos. And even out of that 11,000 videos, there's so many videos where my audio is horrible. There's so many videos where I made a video and I forgot to turn the audio on. So a lot of times I'll just go, hello. And that's a way for me to make sure that the audio is working. And then I go ahead and hit play. Well, hi, Eric. And it's Jordan. I'm going into 10th grade. Any advice? Yeah, man. Enjoy the process. Just enjoy. I don't have any specific advice for 10th grade or for your math. I just say this is, some new and different times. You have a 10th grade like nobody has ever had a 10th grade. So just make the best out of it. Enjoy everything that you can possibly from. I know it's going to be frustrating, and I know it's not fair, sometimes that when you're not getting things that you want, but, just try to make the best out of the whole situation. And, but, also realize a lot of things that maybe you might be a little bit easier for other people is you might have to put in a little bit more work, and that's just reality. And, it's going to be a interesting year, maybe a tough year, maybe an easier. I don't really know. Nobody knows. And that's, I think, another thing I'd say in advice is, you just got to be willing to make changes because nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody knows how things are going to unfold this year. So you just have to make sure that you are ready to adjust as needed. Yes, John, I would totally agree with that. And one piece of advice I give to students is doing multiple problems. Nick, so do you teach multivariable calculus and how hard is it? I do not teach multivariable calculus. And it's been a while since I took it, so I don't even recall from there. But basically, I would say if you are doing fairly well up into getting into multivariable calculus, then you will do perfectly fine. As far as I remember the, calculus progression, as long as you're getting those foundational stuff, calculus typically is not getting more and more difficult. It's just getting like you're just expanding upon these foundational ideas. No, sir. The square root of x plus 2. Oh. Okay. Well, you just want to well, there's nothing you can do if it's just that. I don't know what you mean by solve because you can't, there's no equal sign. So if you're just like, there's nothing you can do. There's like, that's it. You can't multiply anything. So that would be solved. So I'm not sure if there's something else you want me to do with them, but solving, there's no equal sign. So I mean, there's no operation you can apply here. Muhammad, thank you so much for submitting your question. I am sorry. I have been going live for already an hour, and I am not taking any more math questions because my brain is already fried. But you can do a couple things. You can submit your question to me in the chat, or not in the chat, but in the description, and I will be able to get to it next week. Or if you're looking for an answer like now, go over to the link in my Discord and then go ahead and submit it into there. Okay, Bill, that is the same response I will give to him. I just go ahead and I'm not going to be doing any more math, but go ahead and go to the Google form for next week, and I'll be happy to do the question. Or if you want to submit it to the Discord link, then you can go and take a look from there as well. All right, so sorry guys, my brain is kind of already fried from there. Well, happy to help. High Peak Plays. Yeah, those are some good questions. I'd be happy to do them. I'm just not going to do them right now. I'm trying to add off from there. I thought you were talking to me. I realized you were talking about geometry. Well, awesome, Killjoy. I'm happy you were able to get to that. Good maths to do problems. Lots of problems. Yes, I totally agree. I started watching your videos. That's awesome, JL Benjamin. Between you and Nancy, my college calculus is coming along. Well, awesome. Yes, I think Nancy is a great teacher online. I think she has her videos are also very thorough and get through everything. Mr. McLogan does have a Discord. Yes, I do, and I enjoy proofs, so I like going through the proofs and everything like that. Jai. Sorry, guys. I don't know why all these questions. What's happening at like 10 o'clock at night? Why is everybody now showing up to the stream and wanting me guys to do all the math? I am over with my live streams. I did do 11 questions, though. Or did I really do 11? No, I didn't even do that because I didn't know what Christine wanted me to do. But I did 10 questions for you guys tonight. But yeah, guys, if you want me to cover your questions, make sure you go ahead and use the Google form. Let's just go ahead and do that. So he said -3 plus -5 plus 3 divided by 3. And then the y is going to be 5 plus 1 plus -3 divided by 3. Let's see if that works. So that's -5/3. And then this one's going to be, let's see, that's 2, 3. No way. That's going to be 6. Yeah, 3, which would be 1. Okay, so that's going to be, let's see, a -1 2/3 right there, and then +1. There you go. That looks like that would be the centroid, I believe, or one of those, what they're called. So yeah, awesome. I'll go with that. It's a user-submitted answer, so we'll take it. Awesome, from the Philippines. Hi, McLeod. Do you have any tips on how to study effectively and retain information? I want to know how to study for tests. Yeah, I would go back to, one thing that John, posted is it really kind of comes into practicing. And I think being consistent too, doing small consistencies, doing things every single day, even if it's only like for 10, 15 minutes of math, but being consistent with your math work and doing something every single day to stay on top of your curriculum, I think will very help you. And then also, challenging yourself and then doing practice problems, just doing practice problems how to do to because it's been like over 10 years. I'm like, I don't remember how to do this thing, right? But I've been teaching geometry for 10 years. I guarantee I would have been like, oh yeah, this is what you do, right? So it comes into that, practicing over and over problems, and it's just going to help you retain that information more easily. So definitely doing that repetition is definitely going to help you out. And Mr. Sear says, sir, I'm developing interest in computer programming, but my mathematics is weak. Your suggestion on where should I start? I don't know. I don't really know much as far as the curriculum to get into for computer programming. So whatever maths you're going to need, I would just make sure, obviously I know computer science is, heavy with the mathematics. So I would just make sure that you have that foundation and, you're feeling, good with all that. Whatever you need. I'm sorry, I don't really have much better advice for you. Do you think there should be a way students can improve on camera? They are not looking at notes during quizzes. I mean, possibly circumcenter. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember what it is. Circumcenter, centroid. I know there's all. I think there's like three of them, and I just don't recall which one this one is or if I did this correct. Actually, I'm not sure if I did this correct, so let me put an asterisk there. I just don't know, and I don't know when I'm going to teach it. I'm going to teach it sometime this year, but the um, but yeah, I think it really kind of comes into like having a question like how should we be assessing students, and really is a giving students a quiz our best way to really assess, their understanding, and like proving that they're not cheating. It's like, I mean, I don't know. Every year I always try to get better and better with like not allowing students to cheat, but again, they still find a way. Like every year they're always finding a way to cheat, always. So I don't think there's ever going to be it's always like that cat and mouse kind of game. And I don't know. I think just this online learning and, with grades and everything, I think just kind of really brings into the question of, I think the reason why students cheat in my class is because grades are so important to them. And why are grades so important to them? Because it brings into, comparing them to other students when money is on the line for scholarships or applications are on the line to get into certain schools. And, I don't know. I think if getting into schools and grades are going to become less important, then there's going to be less meaning for students to have to cheat. So I think there should be, obviously, we should take care of like integrity and making sure students know what they know. But I also think there's been so much emphasis. I mean, I have so many students that have been so stressed out over their grades that they don't even care about learning. All they do is they do whatever is in my class, they're just doing just to get a grade, and they're not learning anything. So I think we've tilted so far in one direction for so long that and now we're starting to kind of see, with the way that learning is kind of going and the cost of education and where that's going, that we need to maybe rethink the way that we have everything set up. Oh man, you guys. Christine, I still don't understand your question. So yes, I do see it's a product of two functions. Are you trying to find the domain? Like, what is the question though? That is a product of two functions, but I don't understand what the question is asking to do. So if you can maybe add on to that, you can. Gio, do you have a schedule for my live streams? Yes, I do. I go live every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to join my live streams for the rest of the year, I plan on going live every Sunday night. You helped me a lot through my high school. Well, that's awesome. Happy to help you out. Geometry proofs are fun. At least I think so. How hard is AP Calc? I mean, it really kind of depends on your, wherever you stand. I think it is more difficult than taking it in college from what I've seen. And I think also there's a maturity factor that plays into that as well. But that's actually going to depend on what college you're going into and, their calculus program and everything like that. So in centers, thank you very much. Thank you. I did remember there was all three. So that's awesome. But yeah, I wouldn't, I can't give you like a level, and say that's it because it's going to be dependent on everybody as well as the school and the teacher. Just saw one of your videos and saved my life for my homework. I had to do it midnight, saw you were live and came to say that. Well, you're very welcome, Alex. And I do appreciate you watching in the videos, and I'm glad my video could help you out in before the deadline. Well, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. I always watch Brian. Whoa. It's a lot of grades back when you were in school. Ham said my grades were not that good. It was when I did my course, I got D's in pre-calculus, and I was basically like a BC kind of student. I think I got A's in like algebra 1, and that was like the last time I got an A in math until I got to college. And then once I got in college, I took my math very seriously, and yeah, obviously I had to get a degree. It's different online math class. Yeah, I cannot imagine trying to take it online. How do I deal with cranky teachers? I don't know. The teachers are we're trying to go through this as well. But you're only fooling yourself. That's right, Jordan. I mean, it's it's like people are going to cheat, and they're always going to cheat, and I don't think there's one thing that we can do that's going to stop people from cheating. It's the way it is. Yep. Well, hey, DS Void and Roman, what grades do you get during college? I got mostly A's, A, B students. So I was basically like a BC student in high school and then like an AB student in college from in there. Someone, you can send it to me, but you can need to go ahead and put it into the Discord or the, not the Discord. You can put it in the Discord or the Google chat in my description. And yes, you can also send questions, guys. I am not taking any, like, I do not do any personal tutoring. I do teach an online course where students have elected into my online pre-calculus that I'm teaching in addition to my curriculum. But that is really the only time that I have like extra support outside of my live stream. So if you do have different questions for me in Algebra 1 through calculus and everything, go ahead and put them in the Google form in the description. Or you can go ahead and submit them to the Discord. I would say the only grade that's probably going to matter the most is your, pre-calculus. If you feel like if you did okay in pre-calculus and you feel like you have a good understanding in pre-calculus, then you're probably going to be okay in AP calculus. I mean, it's going to transcend fairly well, but not to say that you could not do better. Absolutely. But I would definitely say however you did in pre-calculus, obviously is going to determine a lot of your success for calculus. All right. So about geometry and calculus, just the advice, guys, is just do the practice problems. Stay curious, do extra problems, and get to work. That's about the best I can. But otherwise, guys, it is late. I got school tomorrow. I got to get prepped for that. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I will see you guys next week. And again, if you have questions that I did not get to, you can submit your questions all throughout the week in my description of this live stream, or you can also go ahead and head over to Discord. I do pop in Discord a couple times a week and answer questions. So if you do have those questions, pop them in there. Otherwise, help some people out, answer some other questions, and post your questions there. So there's a great community over there helping each other out. So hope you guys have a great night. Thank you again so much for joining in, and I will see you guys next week. Cheers.